Hey, this is Jennifer, not Greg. Today we're recording on how to read a property detail report that gets pulled by Villa Title. And we pull these reports to read and see the history of the property. We're interested in getting more information out so that maybe we can consider making a bid on the online auction. And so I haven't really gone through this one yet, but I've got Rose on the line who's trying to understand how to read these property detail reports. And so we can kind of go through it and hopefully this will help you understand it a little bit better. So you can take over, Rose, and tell me what's your question or what can we do for you to understand?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So this property, my question was, is the primary owner name is the owner. It's not like lender or anything. So that seems like that means the deed hasn't been transferred, right?
So what happens is that you may find a property on the auction website, right? And as we're trying to, and when we pulled this, if you recall, okay, I'm the one who pulled this one originally. It's either going to be bank owned or for foreclosure, meaning it's about to go into foreclosure, right? You have options of selecting how you want to look at the properties when you're like researching. So if you've noticed government, things take long. Okay, so even though I'll use an example, March 1st was the auction sales date at the courthouse. Okay, and today is, well, you pulled it on April 15th. Okay, so let me use this example instead. Maybe you were looking at this property on the end of March, right? And the auction website said it was already foreclosed because it had a sales date. But let's say it did get foreclosed that day at the auction, meaning nobody bought it at the courthouse. And so what they say is it reverts back to the beneficiary, which is the bank. But today is 4/15. The court date was 3/27. Even if it did foreclose and it went back to the bank, it can sometimes take 1 to 2 months to show up in the county records as recorded. Okay, so it does make it difficult for us when we're trying to research and buy. But right now, you see this property on, let's say, auction.com, right? It's saying, hey, you can bid that the next auction on this property is going to be 4/17, and it's going to be for 3 days. You can make an auction, you can bid on it. But for us, there's a lag time until the property, it gets recorded as a sheriff's deed. So let's say they finally record it, and then the next time it will show up on this detail report, it might be May 1st. But then by that time when it records, you will see the date, May 1st, and it will say sheriff's deed, and then it will show the amount, and that's what the bank took it back for. So for example, this property, this sales price is when these people bought it, right? They bought this property in 2021. So let's say May 1st, it gets foreclosed on and it says sheriff's deed. If you, can you scroll down? Is this an FHA loan?
This is FHA.
Okay, there it is. It's FHA. Okay. So, the first 20 years of a loan is usually all interest, right? You don't pay anything down principal. So they took out a loan for 251,322. So if May 1st, 2025, it got foreclosed on, most likely the sheriff's deed will be for this amount. Okay. So then this is what it was insured for by HUD, right? 251,000. So in all honesty, the bank is not going to sell it for less than $251,000. So that's where you begin. But because it was in 2021, that was during COVID times. And if you recall, everywhere across the US, people were overbidding on the property, right? So then there would be a lot of other sold comps in the area. So if you were looking at this probably in 2024, I would say there's some equity in this home. Okay, so if you have done your research already and see what, well, I shouldn't say that. Different parts of the US appreciate it more than others, right? So if this was California, you may have made $100,000 by now, but this is in Ohio. Maybe it's appreciated 50,000 because today's date is May 1st, 2025. So then you have to analyze, is that worth it for you to go in and buy this property if it's only worth 300,000 now? Do you
Right.
understand what I'm saying? So yeah, so the bigger these, yeah, so that's really, I don't know if I answered your question, okay? It didn't show sheriff's deed yet because it technically did not get recorded with the county yet. And so when you're dealing with a property that just foreclosed, there's a little wait time to know what the bank wants it for. Now, sometimes I've seen it where the bank, for some reason, will take something less, but most of the time, the rule of thumb is they have to sell it because HUD will not allow them to sell this property for less than what that FHA loan amount is, okay? Because it has to do with the insurance. So even though the bank took it back and wants to sell it for 200, they can't because the insurance from HUD is for 251,000. Does that make sense?
Okay, so my research ARV for this property, like currently, like today, is like 285. Then if the bank want to collect a 251, then this shouldn't be a good deal. There's not much.
No. And sometimes you don't have to go pull this property detail report because it's an extra step.
Right.
What I would do is I just go pull Redfin, I put that property address in the browser and then search it. And then it always comes up Redfin, Zillow, Trulia, homes.com, right? Those are all your other consumer, third-party consumer search and searches that come up. I would always click Redfin. And then what Redfin will show you is when the last time it sold and for how much. And if it showed you that this just sold in 2021 for 265, you don't even have to go pull up this property detail report. You could save yourself, one step by not having to pull it up by seeing. You see what I'm saying? But if you pull it up and you see that, oh, okay, what I mean by that is because sometimes if you put the address and Redfin comes up and it said the property was just sold in 2023, I know there's no equity. You know what I mean? And it tells you right there, there's no point in going further to try to reach to research the property detail because it's not enough time for the property to have equity, right? So you don't even want to bother with it when there's so many other properties that are for sale. But it is true, there is a lot of properties right now coming to foreclosure because, in some states there were foreclosure moratorium, but now it's just finally COVID's over, and people did low mods over and over, and now the bank has finally been able to foreclose. So there is more and more properties coming available and have been foreclosed.
See already. Thank
If
you.
you have something else, or let's go in and read some more stuff so you can understand.
Okay, so that's the question was only that for the property. And next one, I have another question. This one, 1465 Hildreth Avenue.
Can you open it up so people who are watching can see the screen?
So this one, my question is, so they bought it FHA loan 211-105, and the origination lender was United Wholesale. And
Mhm.
by now, primary owner is Nation Star Mortgage. Can you explain what's going on here? So I thought they're gonna take over the ownership back. I mean, not ownership back, the ownership, I guess not.
So United Wholesale Mortgage is a lender. They wholesale. So somebody, if you can scroll down, it's almost kind of irrelevant that you know, but I'm gonna throw this out there and maybe it'll stick. But brokers who do loans go to United Wholesale Mortgage, or they call it UWM, all right, and then they lend money. And then as soon as that broker, the deal gets closed and funded, it goes back and gets sold on the secondary market. Okay, so United Wholesale Mortgage was the lender that gave the money out, but then it got sold somewhere, and Nation Star is a mortgage servicing company. They're also known as Mr. Cooper. Okay, so when a homeowner buys a property and then they get the loan, immediately, sometimes they get sold on the secondary market, like Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they do this as well. So they just sell it to somebody else, and then Nation Star is a servicing company. So then they take on the loan, and then they send, there'll be some kind of change, a mortgage, and they send it to the homeowner. And then this is who they send their monthly mortgage payment to. So Nation Star took it back because they serviced the loan. And all these properties that you will look up, like there's loan servicing is another company that I've bought properties from. But again, the servicers foreclose on the property, and then they work for the investor or the seller, whoever owns that property, on their behalf to sell the property. So there is like, there's so many hands that touch it, but for you, you don't need to worry about that part
Yeah,
because this kind of does not matter. Yeah,
yeah.
so that's all it is.
Okay. So I was just kind of nosy, yeah, question.
Nation Star owns Zome, by the way. So XOMB, Zone.com is owned by Nation Star. That's something you may not know, but that's another thing.
And when you see like this transaction summary in number 6, FHA loan amount was this much, and they bought it for sheriff deed price is 154. Do you
Mhm.
the bank still want? I mean, there's no like reserve price on the Zom.com. Then
Mhm.
you think, I'm kind of wondering what price point kind of bank would want it, because for
Okay, I'm gonna go off of 154. That's the sheriff's deed right now. That's what they took it back for. Okay, so they paid 154,000 for it and they took it back. So a bank cannot sell it for more money, if that makes sense. They're not like in it for profit, right? Like you and me, we buy it low, we sell high. In these foreclosures, a bank just gets back their money for whatever is owed on it, right? So sometimes they have insurance. That's what the whole insurance is for people who, when people don't put 20% down, they have to go get insurance. So the insurance covers for the property. So the bank took this back for 154,000. That's what they have to sell it for. So even though the FHA loan is showing 211, that sheriff's deed price is what you're gonna bid on, is this amount. Now,
Okay.
you can always play around and start bidding directly when the auction become available, right? So
Yeah.
here's how I want you to bid and not to get blacklisted, because you don't want, people think, oh, I can just go bid whatever, but if you bid and you become a winner, but you don't proceed and follow through, they will blacklist you and say, next time if you bid, we require you to put a deposit of $500 or $1,000, right? So they have the capacity to do that to you as well. So for me, I always would try to play around and I'll bid lower by a few, and here's how you know if you've met the reserve price or not. It's by looking at the bid increments, right? So every time they start a bid, there's a starting bid and it may be $25,000. Well, just because that's the starting bid and you're the only one that bid for it, that does not mean you will win, right? But if you bid 25,000 and then you see the next bid increment is 25,000, so then the next one will bring you up to 50,000, right?
Okay.
And then they might say, okay, well, then the next bid increment is 15. So those bid increments let you know if you're anywhere close to what the reserve price is. So once you get to 250, $100 bid increments, that means you know you're very close to the reserve price. And even though there's nobody there bidding against you, the only one who's going to be bidding with you is the auctioneer of that site. So they'll bid something higher to get you up to the next one. Okay, so you can be within, because this has happened to me before. My first deal that I bought, I think I was below 5,000. And so I won that bid, but it wasn't what they wanted. So the auction ended. The auctioneer reached out to me in an email and said, hey, the seller wanting a little bit higher, are you willing to come up? So at this point, the auction's already ended and it was an email back and forth between me and the auctioneer to come up for a little bit higher, right? And I've had where I said, no, I only want to go that high. And maybe we're within 2,000, 2,500. I've had the auction platform like Zoom said, okay, we'll contribute some money so that the seller get what they want and you can buy it. And so because Zoom also gets paid a fee, you know what I mean, to do it on their platform. And sometimes you see something like a 5% buyer's premium, and that 5% goes into the paying the platform and stuff like that. So that is something that you could see happen. But I would make a bid and say maybe go to 153, 54. So long as I'm not the winning bid and the auction ends, they can never put me on a blacklist and say, you have to deposit $500 next time. So I always want to stay below. I do not want to be the winning bid. And here's the thing that most people don't understand. If that auction is over and you're not the winning bid, they just next week, especially Zone, they have their auctions from Saturday to Tuesday. Okay, every week it just keeps going back on there, so you can test what the bank wants for it by playing around with the numbers. Okay, you can put a proxy bid in there too. I always bid lower than what I think the bank would take. But if they happen to accept the offer that I offered and it was lower than what I thought they want, well, guess what? It still helped you, right? Because now they accepted the lower bid than what you thought it would be. So me, I just play around with numbers. And then and when you look at the platform, and if you've saved it, okay, and you look, it will tell you right there. It'll say reserve not met or next bid meets reserve price. It's a screen on your favorites page, and you just have to scroll through there because it looks a little bit different sometimes, and they will tell you what it is to win. That's all. So, I mean, it's a lot to take in, but just don't ever be the higher bid. Just always be below, and then below what you want to pay for it. And if you don't get it, that's okay. You do it next time again. You get what I'm saying? I just play around.
I see. Another question is where, oh, okay. So when you see the lien history, if there's like nothing there, then can I believe nothing there, or it could come up something when we close, like
This is just preliminary. You always have a title gets open and you pay for it. They will ask you, would you, if you have a loan, you're gonna finance this with a hard money lender, they're gonna want a title search, right? So you don't rely on this, because when you get into escrow, you have 30 days to do your due diligence. Well, they won't let you go get an appraisal, but you're gonna still do a title, you will have title insurance, so you can look at the lien and make sure it's clean before you buy it, okay? So that's irrelevant, I wanna say. It is at this point, but if you see something like, okay, I'm gonna throw, I don't know if I should throw it in here or not, but when you look at this, and some of these people went and got another FHA, you'll see in here, it might say $10,000, because some people did go and ask HUD to give them like 3 months, because they were behind and they didn't make their monthly mortgage payment. I've seen people where they borrow another 10,000 and HUD will give it to them, but then in the end, most of these people get foreclosed anyways, if they haven't paid for 3 months, HUD gives them money to cover it, and then it rolls back into the loan, but they foreclosed on it. You will see here, it'll say FHA, maybe another 12,000. But I'm just gonna leave it at there, because you're new, you don't understand yet, and I don't want to throw another can of worms, but perhaps maybe on another one where it shows it, okay? But for now, you will always have title insurance when you when you open escrow. And then it will and if it's not clean or anything, the seller will have to take care of it prior to close of escrow.
Okay. Okay. What if you what if there's like a lien attached and the number doesn't work for us at the time? What would you do? You just back out or talk with the bank?
Well, what kind of lien are you talking about? Liens get wiped out during foreclosure, okay? If it's
All
a
of it?
second, third, fourth lien, the
Um,
only liens that don't get wiped out is another HUD lien, another county tax, whatever the seller would be paying for it. So
okay.
it's a seller issue, but
Oh,
the liens that might not be removed was, again, a HUD lien that showed that HUD paid for these people because they were delinquent for 3-4 months. I've seen them borrow more money and HUD will pay for it. So as of July of last year, that lien doesn't disappear, okay? It's a law that got passed now, so you have to use a title company that will, I don't know, today it just ran out of my head, that will, you have to check with the title company and if they will indemnify it, okay? Because depending on if you're flipping this property the next time around, it has to do with insurance. Okay, that's all I want to say. And I'll just leave it at that because I can't remember the word. But something changed as of July last year, and I found that out because it was on one of the properties that I was buying. Okay, so if the title company will insure it, even though it's there, then you're good. It's all about the title company.
Okay, I see. And here, transaction summary. What is the foreclosure date that I mean, Ohio, it's good that if the deed transfer to the new owner, like a new buyer, there's no redemption that we should kind of count. But in Michigan, we still need to count the
Yeah.
date. What is the foreclosure date?
This one is January 13, 2025, right? So
Okay.
they foreclosed it then, you pulled it on April 11th,
Yeah.
right? So that's almost 3 months already, so that's 90 days. Is the redemption period already good?
Oh, the Michigan, six
Well,
months of
yeah,
Ohio. No, if there's a sheriff deed, then there's no more redemption. It's over already for Ohio.
well, what is it for Ohio? You said 90 days?
Yeah, before the deed transfer.
Well, the deed has transferred. Do you see that sheriff's deed right there? It
Yeah,
says
so this one
that's the day it foreclosed. So
yeah,
January 13 is when it foreclosed, and today is April 11th. It's been 90 days.
yeah. So
Is the
this one we
redemption?
don't need to worry about it. but I was wondering for Michigan. When I see Michigan, I need
Yeah,
to,
Michigan is 6 months.
yeah. So,
So
okay. But Ohio, if there's a sheriff deed, we don't need to worry about it. And another,
every state is different. That's why when you play this game in foreclosure date, you need to know it's judicial, non-judicial. You must check the state, and if the homeowner have, their first right of refusal. What they've told me, even these auction platform is, when I spoke to them, they said it's so rare, very rare, anybody come back and, get their house back. So, but escrow won't close either, right? So they will wait for the exact date because they're not even allowed to step in the house. They cannot even file eviction notice or anything like that if the homeowner is still occupying the property. So you can still win the bid, but, and then you have to sit there and wait. They sometimes, maybe they may let you close, but they make you sign. So the bank will make you sign paperwork and state and let you know that, the redemption period is not over yet.
and then last one, I'm just curious if, if there's a lot of like foreclosure activity around the neighborhood, is that something that we should care about, or?
Well, I've done this like you, where I look at the foreclosure activity and like I bought a property right now and I happened to go on to look at it, the detail, and I noticed next door is foreclosed. So I'm in this exact situation. I looked at this and I realized the house to the right foreclosed on March 27th, okay? And I saw it on this report. I didn't see it on the auction platform. So I really want to buy this property next door, but I have no clue where it's being sold, who's it, I have no connection to it. So, you can go after it sometimes, you can, but I mean, is your question, should you be worried, or how do you
Yeah,
also
the
go and
worried,
check?
or is there something, I mean, yeah, this could be opportunity, but my question was more like, is there something that I should care about for this specific property, or not, that doesn't matter?
I mean, no, I mean, if every house on that street's gonna foreclose, I mean, yeah, that might play a game into your exit strategy, right? So is it gonna be a neighborhood where people are just living there and not paying, and then you put a tenant in, or if you do midterm rentals, they're living next to people who don't take care of their property, you know what I mean? It might make it look bad. And back in 2008, like, you had so many homes on a block with dead grass, you know what I mean? So it does look bad, but this is an opportunity. If you're somebody who goes after people and trying to do the pre-foreclosure and do subject to or something creative, then you can go knock on their door and say, hey, maybe I can help you, or something. So that's an opportunity for you to check every single house and see where it's at. So like when I see this, sometimes guess what I do? I go pull another property profile on that property, right? And then I look and see what's going on with that one.
Okay, I think that's about it for the property report.
Okay, so sometimes I'll pull a property detail report because I've been going after lately pre-foreclosures, right? So that means there's no date. I don't know how much the bank is gonna get it back for, but I I'll keep an eye out on it, right? So I save it on the auction platform and I put in my spreadsheet. So I'm gonna show you my spreadsheet. Um, So it's gonna be my turn now, so let me share my screen.
Okay. Well, how can I think
Just close out and I'll do it. Okay. Okay, so now it's me. I'm gonna share my screen. I don't know how to get you off your screen. All right, my screen now. All right, so let me show you. Okay. Do you see my screen or are we still looking at yours?
I see it. I see your
Do you
screen.
see my spreadsheet?
Mhm.
Okay. So on the left side is my saved assets on auction.com, right? I'm probably gonna, do you see the status here? Okay,
Yeah.
so these ones are Banco, because I even have the one I saved that says foreclosure sale, right? The foreclosure ones can't be bid on yet. Let me see here, yesterday, so.
What are you waiting for? What kind of status are you waiting for the foreclosure sale when you put it in there?
I'll show you. It will give me the court date right here. So this tells you when's the court date, right? This one
Oh,
you have to bid in person.
okay.
You know, and I've seen where I've followed some properties where I thought the bank was gonna sell for 112,000, right? So that was my reserve price, and I was looking at the property and then it disappeared. And then later on, I'm also on Zillow. Okay, so I'm in this one city in Indiana, and then all of a sudden one day I see it listed on Zillow, and that name looked familiar. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the house that I was looking at. So it turned out this investor bought it at the auction, okay? And then when I went to search, I thought the bank was gonna let it go for 112,000, which is still okay, because I think the ARV was 150, 160, right? Well, that investor was able to buy at the courthouse. They bought it for 60,000. And then they remodeled it and then they listed it for like 160. And when I was doing my research, the bank, I thought the reserve price was 112,000. So they got a good deal at the courthouse, but the only thing is when you go to the courthouse and you buy it, they require you to have a cashier's check, you know, like exact amount of money. And so a lot of, I remember investors would come with like 5,000 cashier's check, you know, in increments. So when they pay, they just put all that money down. So I'm gonna share another one because I'm gonna have my contractor go to the courthouse on April the 24th. So depending on what city you're in, they hold these auctions maybe once a month, twice a month. I don't know. So I found 6 properties in Evansville, Indiana, and they're going up for auction on April the 24th. Okay, so my guy is gonna go sit there because I've never been to a live auction either, and I want to see how they do it. But if you go on my spreadsheet over here to the right, what I did was I added this first section are for bank-owned properties that, you know, so properties that have already been foreclosed. Now I started to look at properties that are going to be foreclosed, right? So I have this column that says courthouse sale date. So these properties right here, if you see it, it's coming up April 24th. Do you see that date?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm really interested in these properties, and then guess what I did? I also saved it, right? Because when you go to these platforms, you have a choice to pick pre-foreclosures, or you select bank owned, and then you select second chance foreclosures. If you already watched my other videos, bank owned and second chance foreclosures are foreclosed properties, right? Second chance are FHA and I believe VA. So they're government loans, and they usually do not have a buyer's premium, which is 5%. So have you noticed that? That means there's no listing agent involved in those properties, which is good and bad at the same time. Bad because you have to pay 5% of whatever the bid you win. Okay, but then if there's an agent, they can let you in the house and you can go inside and see what what the condition of the property is in. Okay, so it makes it easier, and you can have, so anyway, you can go in and view it and see the condition. But when you buy second chance foreclosures, they say not to go in there. And again, if you followed me, I always have to go inside the property so I can figure out how much work is needed, okay? So, and so I just monitor this. And sometimes, you know, even though you're looking here and you save it on the court date, this may disappear because somebody will buy it at the auction and then it will say sold to a third party. So then it will disappear eventually when you go look at it next time, okay? I want to show something in this. There was a property here that I was looking at. It was in a great neighborhood. It went to auction on January the 30th. Okay, is this property here, January 30th. My contractor was able to get in the house because the bank didn't secure it, and he was able to view it, look at how much work it was. And so I saw it and I was ready to buy it. And then as soon as that date passed, January 30th was the auction date, it disappeared. It kept saying coming soon, and then it disappeared completely from this platform on auction.com. And then I contacted my people that I knew at auction.com. I said, hey, this is an FHA property previously. When is it going to show up for me to buy? And it literally took 3 months. It finally came back onto auction.com. But then now, guess what? Do you see this where it says first look program?
Right. Yeah, that was my another question.
Okay, first look is for people who are going to buy this property to live in. They want the homeowners to have the first right of refusal to buy the property. Okay, and then it tells you down here, it ends on May 13th. So that means as an investor, I can bid on this date. But right now I cannot. And how do they know? Well, they make you sign an affidavit if you bid before this date that you are going to live there, right? So I cannot buy. That's fraud. I can't buy it. So I have to wait until this date, and then I can make a bid.
See.
So, and then I want to show you something else, which I know a lot of people, I may or may have not said it, but only an auction.com does this. Zome doesn't do it. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, right? Right here, you'll see review property information. If you click on this, it's a report. It's an initial report of this property when it has been put on this website. So if you are interested in this property and you favorite this, okay? Sometimes this property is occupied. And then every month, the bank sends someone to this property to check to see what the occupancy is. They pay like an agent $40 or something to go and look at it every month. And so let's say, for example, the next month, the agent goes and looks at it. They have to fill this property inspection report. And so when you save this, you will get a notification up here, and it will say, hey, a new property inspection report for this property here. And if the agent was able to get in, you will have a new report that says the property is vacant, and then they take pictures inside. However, sometimes, and this is through my own experience, this is why I know, sometimes they just leave this property and it says it's occupied. The reason I know it's vacant is because I send my boots on the ground, or whoever I'm using, my contractor, they already went to look at that house and they know it's vacant. But the auction platform don't update it. So sometimes this is good for us because other people think the house is occupied, but you know it's vacant because you've already gone to look at that property. And this helps you because then you can make a bid on this property, and even though it shows occupied, you know it's vacant. Do you get what I'm saying? So other people who are trying to bid on it think it's occupied and they don't want to have to deal with the eviction, but you yourself know it's vacant. So those are a few things you need to do, right? So the bank doesn't always change this to vacant, but if it does become vacant and you haven't looked at it yet, you will get a notification and they will upload a property inspection report right here, and then you can open it, and then they take photos and tell you the status of it. Okay, so always be on the lookout for this right here.
Good to know.
Okay? Yeah, and they will send you a notification. So I always save every property I like.
Okay.
All right, so that's pretty much it. And then what I did was I created a spreadsheet. So right here's all the properties I always put a link to what the home looked like the last time it was listed, okay? Because you want to get an idea if it was last sold and it wasn't like an investor sold the property and then they went and did a lot of the majority of the repairs, so you don't have to worry about it, But here's something, again, you may or may not know that these websites always pull from the MLS of the last listing, right? So if these auction properties do have a listing agent, then it will immediately take the photo from that listing agent and the current MLS. And so you'll see, and all these other old photos from previously, it won't show on the internet anymore. So it gets washed away. But a lot of these auction properties, if you buy second chance foreclosures, it does not go on the MLS. For some reason, the only third party that picks it up is Zillow. Zillow will be the only one that picks it up from the auction. But if you're somebody who looks on the MLS all the time, these properties don't show up. And I mentioned this is because it's for competition. You're not dealing with other people who look on the MLS, okay? And then what also I did was I created this spreadsheet, and this I share it with my contractor. And so this way it helps them. I put on here all the properties that I want them to drive by to go look to see if there's somebody living in the home. And and a lot of people, depending what state you're buying in, people do vacate the home after it's been foreclosed. And in that interim period, that's when you can, if the doors, they always leave a door open because you know why? They want to come back in. So if you can go to that property, talk to the neighbors, check the door, see if you can get in so you can inspect the property before it gets secured. Okay, I know the bank says do not go in, do not trespass, but if you don't go in, you can also have other squatters go in. Somebody's going to go in that house, but it just really depends on. So in the interim, when the homeowner has left the property and it has not been secured by the bank, there is a period that you can look and go inside to make sure that what the condition of the property is before you bid on it. Okay, so that's the time frame. That's why I still look at these properties just before they get foreclosed, because I have a higher percentage of having access to the property. Does that make sense? So I do that. I give this for my contractors so they can go look at the properties.
So you do that for the property that's gonna go on in-person auction too? Like
Yeah,
in-person auction.
yeah, and sometimes I try to wait just that day or the next day because I get if I don't want to waste my guys' time, because what if they went and looked at it and then it got sold to somebody else? But sometimes, I always teach people maybe the easiest is just drive by at night. If there's lights on, then someone's living there.
Right.
But if it's at night and there's no lights, maybe that day you went, they just were not home. But oftentimes, if somebody's home and it's dark, they turn on the light. So yeah, it's getting close to the auction date, you know what I mean? So April 24th is only 1 week away. So if they're in the area, I tell my guys to drive by and check it out for me.
Okay.
That's the best time to catch the homeowner or just left the house and stuff like that. So that's how I've still been able to buy a lot of properties and be able to get in, because they leave the house unlocked.
Okay, I thought bank are gonna go and just secure the property right away, but I guess not. That's how it works.
They don't do it right away. Sometimes I bought a property where they never secured it, okay? They just left it there like that. And I have to go secure it. You know why? Because I don't want squatters to come in and steal
Yours.
furniture and stuff like that. Yeah, and so that's more damage. So I've done it where I've secured the property so nobody else can go in there to steal stuff.
Okay. Oh, okay. You mentioned about the inspection period. Um, after after we win the auction, and
Mhm.
there's a official inspection time period, right?
Well, it's usually a 30-day escrow, okay? And you're gonna be dealing with hard money lender or you're gonna be dealing with cash. They usually do want an appraisal to be done. Um, when these homes don't have a combo lock on the banks usually don't allow you to have an appraisal. But I'm still able to get the appraisers inside the house because again, I just told you sometimes the banks do not secure these property. Depending on who your hard money lender is, sometimes they can just do a desktop appraisal, you know, but you have to let them know you're buying a bank-owned property. They don't let you into appraise it, so do it based on comps. And a lot of these hard money lenders, I always feel I get the 100% of the renovation costs, right? So nowadays, hard money will give you money to buy the property, and then they will give you 100% of the rehab costs, so long as you provide them a scope of work, right? So that you're telling them, this is what you're gonna do to the property. So you have to give that to them so then they can work it in their appraisal. So then they look at it. It's the same thing if you get an FHA loan and you get a loan that is an FHA 203K, that is to help you rehab the property to bring it to the current condition. So that appraiser will look at all the work you're gonna do and say, okay, this is the after repair value of the property. You get it? So that's how they determine what the value of the home will be after you make all those repairs.
Okay, so we hired the appraiser for the hard money loan. Is what it is.
Well,
Or hard money loan.
but the hard money lender will make you pay for an appraisal and then they will
They're gonna
schedule
send their
an appraisal.
appraisal.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I see. I'm going through my question. Oh, do you have more to walk through? I mean,
What was that?
I'm going through my question, so you can say if you have some stuff to say while I'm going through.
What is your question?
Oh, I'm going
Yeah.
through my question sheet right now.
Okay.
Mhm. No. Oh, so last time you mentioned that there could be a delay to close it. So my question is, what factor would make closing delay?
Okay, so obviously we want to buy a property that doesn't have any liens, trash, city, municipal, right? So sometimes like in Nevada, they have the garbage, right? Even if a homeowner doesn't pay the garbage fee, Republic Service comes every week to pick up the trash, right? And if you don't pay them, they continue to pick up the trash, but they will put a lien on the property. Okay, so for example, I'll use something where I had a foreclosure listing and it had been 8 years that the trash has been collected. No, maybe 15 years, but it was like $8,000 was the trash bill. And there was a lien on it. So I had to provide all the liens to the bank and then they paid for it at the close of escrow. Okay, so when you're asking me what liens are there, these are some of the liens that the bank has to take care of before the new property owner can get a clean and clear title to take ownership. Okay, so those are the things that it's always these city liens and stuff like that. Okay, is what the bank has to take care of and you cannot close. Is what causes the delays.
I
Okay.
see.
Yeah, those things. Sometimes because, a bank's taking over, they don't know what liens was put on the property from the previous owner. I had one where the bank, I was doing the foreclosure, we were in escrow, and I think the bank foreclosed and they foreclosed on a HELOC and they didn't foreclose on the first. So that buyer couldn't buy that property. It got removed, taken back by the bank, and they had to go foreclose again on a different lien. And then that buyer was trying to buy it and they couldn't. So those are the things that can come up, and this is why you still have title working on the property to ensure that you will get a clean title when you own it. So
Maybe
those are some of the delays.
I think that was all my question.
Yeah, so the only thing is you just, have to go and do, and here's another thing that I'm just gonna add in there. So if you're gonna buy a property, depending on what state, because you have to have a profile like on auction.com and zone.com. They want to know, they give you 24 hours. So if you win the bid, what they will do next is you have to fill out what they call like a summary checkout form, and then you check out and you put all your information in, and then they will send you the documentation and the contract for you to sign, right? Auction.com is, you have 8 hours, you have 24 hours, everything is automated, and if you need more time, you contact them and tell them, hey, I need a little bit more time to fill this out. So for me, in the past, sometimes I go in this with another partner and then I form an LLC immediately, and depending on what state, some states do it immediately, right? So I sometimes ask them to give me more time so I can form the LLC. And then and then they give you a check, and so anyways, but yeah, if you need more time for anything, you just contact them. They will assign somebody who works with you throughout the closing of escrow. Okay, so, but other than that, just do it and try. That's the only way you're gonna learn, with these things. But there is some research you have to do first, and then, it's pretty lucrative, I guess is the word I want to say. And I've been doing it for a year now, and it's a pretty good way to make some money.
Yes. But I have some
Okay.
questions after this recording.
But yeah, the more you look at these property details, there's sometimes I don't understand. I don't know what the heck it is on there too. Um, I don't get it. So, there are some things that makes no sense. There's just a lot of things that gets reported. But again, keep in mind, it takes several weeks sometimes before the foreclosure date, before it gets reported. So you can hold off on it, before you make a bid, because you need to know what the bank is wanting the price for. Okay, well, that's it. I'm gonna record and share this for property details report. Okay, Rose, that's it. Any other questions?
No, that's all. I
All
just
right.
tell you my potential partner in Ohio when you're done with the recording.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.